Good day, welcome to Python Coding 101 for students by a student. So this is designed as a short, clear and cohesive class for other students looking to learn the fundamental core basics of Python and integrate it with your career, job, learning, whatever it may be. And this is broken down to the core basics. We are throwing everything out that isn't needed. Anything that's questionable, out the window. So let's move on. So, who is this designed for? Like I said earlier, it's primarily for students, but also if you're a tutor as well, you could definitely get some value out of this, or any other educator for that matter. So, by the end of this lesson, you should be able to know the basics of Python's coding language, create a simple game as a proof of concept, write an algorithm in Python that will help you in your studies. Before we move on, I should say that if you are deaf or have trouble hearing, I advise you to turn on the closed captions below. This will be on YouTube, so just take that. So how do you get set up in Python? Go to www.python.org/downloads and download the latest Python version. This will install Python's coding language to your PC, but you will need an integrated development software, or otherwise known as an IDE, if you want to write code efficiently. Go to www.jetbrains.com/pycharm. We'll be using that one for today. Install a free version. Now you're all set. Lesson 1, Python Basics. Pro tip from now on, different functions will be color-coded as they appear in PyCharm, so it's to help you with learning and recalling and such like that. Alright, Lesson 1, Print Statement. Write in PyCharm, print hello world. And then, if you do that all correctly, you should get hello world spat out on the other side. So there are 4 components to our command that you should probably know about. The print is our command. There are many commands in Python, it's just one of them. It will display a message, that's what that does. The brackets tell Python where your command is and where the message is located. The quotations indicate that your words are going to be a string. I'll talk more about that later on. And then, of course, our message, so hello world. Well done. So for fun now, we're going to be drawing a shape with print. We're going to be drawing that little shape there on the left. It's like a half triangle, half pyramid thing. I'm not too sure what it is. So just write that in PyCharm at your own pace. Pro tip, you can use the space to space out the characters. And then when we actually type this in Python, in PyCharm, sorry, as you can see, so this is how it looks like on my end. Yours might look a bit different, but as you can see, the principle is still the same. I'm writing our little algorithm here with our pyramid. Then we're going to hit run on that in a second. And there we go. It spat out a nice half triangle. Lesson 1b, Variables. Think of variables like a jar, used to conveniently store strings. So at the bottom here, we have 2 examples how a variable is established. Just a heads up, you write these before your main code. So at the very top, you would establish all your variables beforehand. So here we have our variable in gray, character underscore name, and then in our variable is going to be John. So that's a string. We're storing a string in our variable. So character name will have John in it forever now. Same thing down here, but it's just 35. So you can use it with text or numbers, however you please. So those variables now have strings sorted into them, and we're going to use them later on. But why would we want to do this? Well, here's an example. Here's a story that I wrote using our print commands from earlier. Print. There once was a name, character name. Print. He was character age years old. Print. He really liked the name, character name. Print, but didn't like being character age. And if we run that command, you'll see there that it actually will display as there once was a man named John. He was 35 years old. He really liked the name John, but didn't much like being 35. Pro tip, by the way, you need to add the plus symbols in between our strings and our variable, just for future reference. But what if you don't like the name John, or his age, and wanted to change it later on without having to painstakingly go back and edit it all? Or what if the reader wanted to change it himself? That's where variables shine. So if you want to change all the times we mentioned John's character name, we simply have to go back where we establish our variable values at the top of our code, and just change what is stored on them. So for example, John is still stored on character name. We could just change that to Bob now. And we can do the same with 35 and 20. So now when we run the same code as before, exact same code, nothing's changed, it will now spit out a man named Bob, 20 years old. Just by changing that one word, we've now changed the entire story. That is amazing. But what are strings anyway? Lesson 1C, strings. Strings are a function that contain written words or numbers that a program is not allowed to read as a command. It's essentially raw data. They're called strings because from a computer's point of view, human language kind of looks like a bunch of strings tied together. Gibberish, nonsense, incoherence, right? But to us, it's language. Strings make sure that the phrase, "can I print some photos," is not interpreted as, "can I print some photos?" That will think that it's a command and therefore spit out an error. Lesson 1D, Boolean values. A Boolean value represents a true or false value from a variable. Most useful when used in databases or questionnaires, stuff like that. So for example, we have is male equal false, is female equal true. That's an example of a Boolean value. And as you can see at the bottom there, we have a little example of it written in code. Lesson 1E, if, while, and else statements. If, while, and else statements are extremely important indicators in Python. If I'm being honest with you, they'll make up to 80% of your code. They're that important. And they're important because they're triggers, looking to see if a prerequisite is met. Once the prerequisite is met, then they'll run the corresponding code that they're tied with. So for example, the most basic statement, if identifies if a function is equal to another. So for example, if car equal red, then belongs to Jason. Like that. While is another example of a statement like this, but while always checks to see if a value remains constant, so it's constantly checking if that value remains the same. While not also works as well, it's the exact opposite of while. Else is very important as well. Else checks if the previous triggers are met, and if they're not met, then the program will fall back onto this. So, else, basically, let's say that car wasn't red after all, it was some other color, else belongs to stranger. That's how an else statement works. Lesson 2, making a simple game. Now that we've covered the basics in lesson 1, it's time we both use our knowledge to make a word guessing game. Congratulations on getting this far. Now we're going to be doing some real programming. First, we're going to define our variables. Remember, we have to define our variables first. So our variables are secret underscore word and guessed. We're going to have cat as our string in secret word, and we're going to have a Boolean value in guessed. And our Boolean value is going to be false. So that's a flag that's going to be saying that guessed will be false from now on. Then we're going to run a simple print statement. Then we're going to run a while not command. So while not guessed equal false, user guess input. Input I haven't told you about before, but basically it's going to ask the recipient for some text or some data, and then it's going to say guess the word before that as well. So if user guess equals secret word, print, congratulations, you guessed it right. And then it's going to change our flag, our variable, to true. Else, so if we don't get it right, it'll print wrong guess. Try again. And at the end, we're going to have print thanks for playing. So let's see this program in action. As you can see here, we have our code from before in PyCharm, exactly as it was written before, nothing's changed. Even the colors are the same. I've made this lecture like that. Of course, we have our if and our else statements. Let's run it. Guess the word, and guess dog, spits out wrong guess again, cat. Congratulations, you guessed it right. That's our program done. Lesson 3, making a GPA calculator. Congratulations on getting to the end. This one's going to be a little bit more complicated, but as long as you copy what's on screen, you should be fine. So first we're going to write def calculate GPA. Def just means define, and we're going to be defining this phrase here, calculate GPA, and in brackets type in grades. We'll get back to that later. Then this is just a statement. This is just for us, the programmer. It's not for anything else. Then we're going to define our variables. Our variables are going to be GPA and total points. total points is going to equal the sum of all of our grades. So sum, kind of like in Microsoft Excel, it's going to be adding all of our grades together. I'm going to import those grades later on. Then our variable, GPA, is going to equal the total points. So it's going to equal the variable divided by the length, that's what LEN stands for, length, grades. So that's going to divide by how many grades we put in. So if we have 5 grades, it's going to divide by 5. Then it's going to recalculate what the GPA is. That's what return means. So at the bottom here, I've imported some grades. You can put in whatever grades you want. I've just put in those. And then we're going to have a little program that says GPA equal calculate GPA grades. So that's what calculate GPA at the top is coming down now to refer to. And then we're going to type in print your GPA is, and then just type in the variable GPA. Let's see this in action now. All right, here's our program. We are now going to run this program. As you can see, we have calculate GPA there. And as you can tie this back down to the bottom there, we have our return GPA. We have the total points. It's going to multiply and divide. And then once we hit run, there you go, our GPA. Done, that's the course. If you want to learn more about Python that expands further than what I covered today, I highly suggest the following. Codecademy offers a free course about Python 3 for beginners. It's actually what I used to learn Python in the first place. I highly recommend it. Then there are many great YouTube tutorials out there that you can use to watch at your own pace and do it your own way. Those are great as well. Thanks for watching.